today I'm going to show you how I made my cosplay of Skyward Sword Zelda, but also it's not Skyward Sword Zelda, and her name is actually Sun, and she's from the Legend of Zelda series, from the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, but she's also not from the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. And I'm going to show you how I made it, and I'm going to explain this a little bit as I go. Hello guys, I'm Annie Designs and welcome back to my YouTube channel. As mentioned in my little intro, we are going to be talking about a new cosplay that I made, and you've seen it already on my channel a little bit, and if you haven't, we're going to explain a little bit of what happened with this cosplay along the way. But let's go back to past me as I explain how I started making this cosplay of Sun from the Link's Universe fan comic. Okay, so today I am actually starting to sew together the dress for my Sky Zelda or Sun, which I will explain why I'm calling her both of these things. But anyway, today I'm starting to actually sew the dress. Now I'm gonna pop up a piece of the an image of some of her artwork right here to kind of explain how I went about this. So I did pattern draft everything from scratch, but what I basically did is I made a basic bodice that goes about to the waist that has darts and tucks on it. So the first thing I actually need to do in this bodice is actually just deal with the tucks. Tucks and the darts get just sewn down as you normally would with darts or tucks. And I'm doing tucks instead because her bodice is a little on the blousey side underneath the little corset belt. So I sew down those and I'll have a nicely fitted bodice. I also have a seam on the very back, and that is just because of fitting stuff. I wanted the neckline to sit very flat, and because of the shape of my neck, it wasn't sitting very flat. So I put in a back seam because that allows me to fit the upper area where my shoulder blades are a lot easier. And that's actually a really good trick if you're making something and the back isn't fitting very well. And if it doesn't have a back seam, put one in, and if it does, you just take stuff out of there. The other thing that I'm doing on this bodice is I have some facing pieces. Part of the reason for the facing pieces is first off just cleanliness and finishing, but there's also a center front closure, because looking at this artwork, it's a little hard to tell exactly what the implications are on everything, because they are more sketches than anything, which makes it very interesting compared to working off of like official canon drawings where it's all highly detailed and rendered. This one's very sketchy, but it does seem to be implied that there is a front closure that laces up in the front. So the facing and also the bodice have really thick interfacing on it, because this would not be a boned bodice, so I'm not putting boning in there, but I still need enough structure to kind of hold on to those grommets. So I will be putting together the facing as well and then attaching that to the inside. And the facing also will help make that neckline look really nice and clean, structure it, and also help with the point that kind of happens on the neck as well. So we're gonna start with that, and then once the bodice is together, I can start to worry about other things. Alright, so it doesn't look like much right now, but the facing is in. It is not completely sewn down yet because I do need to put the skirt in before I can work on sewing down and attaching the facing, because it will be sewn down also to the inside when the skirt is attached. But we have a bodice, mostly constructed. It's nice and strong in the front before I eventually put those grommets in, which again I'm going to do once I have the skirt on. So the skirt is actually in 3 pieces, and there's 2 20-inch wide pieces and then a 40-inch wide piece. They're all rectangular because it's going to be a rectangular skirt. I have to sew the 20-inch wide pieces to either side of the 40-inch one, which will make the side seams, so it's the back and then the front, because it is a front opening dress. So I need to just sew those side seams together. Just a very simple straight stitch, straight seam, which I'm going to press open and flat. And then I need to hem the whole thing. So I need to hem the very front of it, and I need to hem the bottom of it, which is 80 inches of total hem. Not too bad, but now I just need to add in the skirt. So we're going to get the skirt constructed first and foremost, and once it is in one piece where it has both side seams and a hem, I can attach it to the waist. 2 parallel lines of gathering stitches all the way across the top, and then gathering that onto the waist of the bodice and stitching it down with a very solid straight stitch. Once that is all done and it's all in one piece, I can sew down the facing and get it down so it's over top on the inside. So it's going to be hand stitched down all the way around. I'm not worried about stitching showing through due to the nature of this fabric and the fact that I will be fancying this up a bit later. Either way, it's going super well so far, and I'm having a lot of fun making it. It's been kind of relaxing to do so far, honestly. Alright, so yesterday I managed to finish most of the base dress minus the sleeves, because I need to deal with the sleeves on their own before I can attach them. But most of the dress is now complete and I'm really happy with it. I tried it on, it fits me way better than it fits my mannequin. As we can see right now, I have it pinned on here, And I actually discovered something when I did try it on, and that is because I double interfaced it on the facing and on the body itself with a very thick interfacing, especially once I put the top stitch down the front, it kind of acts like structure. It's very, very interesting. So I don't need to put bones in this because it's already acting as if it has structure. Now what I need to do though is add a closure, which of course I mentioned I want it to be a lace up. So what I'm going to do is get some grommets out and figure out exactly where I want to place everything. Now my methods for putting grommets in is not the greatest because I don't have quite the right equipment to do it, so it's a little tedious. I punch holes in and then I put the grommets in and I kind of squish them down using this little machine I have. But putting the holes in is kind of the hard part here because again, I don't have a hole puncher or anything of that nature, so I use like a little awl and like stab the holes in. Not the most elegant way of doing this, but it works. So that's what I'm gonna do. And because of the way I want to do this and because of the way the detail looks on this garment, I am planning on completely thread covering these eyelets as well. So that should take me quite a bit of time to do. But honestly, I like eyelet hole covering. It's quite relaxing to me because you just kind of follow the outline that's already there. And I really love the way it looks when it's finished as well. It makes it look really, really like homemade and like kitschy, kind of like, you know, self-made essentially. Like homemade and very crafty kind of idea. A little historical as well. And I feel like that really suits this version of Zelda. So we're gonna cover them with blue because there's a lot of blue in that area of all the details. And then once we're done that, then I can worry about getting all the hand details on. So let's talk a little bit about where this version of Zelda actually comes from, the fan comic Linked Universe. So this version of Zelda is based on the Zelda that you see in The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, but is from a fan comic called Linked Universe, AU. AU meaning alternate universe. Now this is probably one of my favorite fan comics I've ever read, let alone like pieces of fictional like alternate universe media, and I absolutely adore it. The fan comic series and all the art that goes along with it and the blogs and such are created by an artist called JoJo, and the concept is that all the various different links from all the different games and titles meet together in an alternate universe and have to like solve problems together. They work as a team instead of as an individual this time. All of the character designs have changed a little bit, otherwise you'd have a bunch of guys with blonde hair, green tunics, and green hats. But they've all still remained looking like Link while looking more unique with their in-game character concepts. Elements from within their games have been added on, or special items that they get in their games or special armor have been mixed into their designs, and most of them don't actually have the green hat. I don't think any of them actually have the green hat, but one of them does have a pointed hat. But we'll get to that. Their personalities and designs have been done in a way where they're very distinctive. You can even tell them apart by their silhouettes if you were to just shade in all the design. It's really, really clever and some excellent, excellent character design, if I do say so myself. Their personalities are also all distinct, though you could argue that in-game all the links have their own various little quirks and such, but they've really like amped it up, and they've also combined several games worth into one. So I'll kind of explain who some of the links are and show you a little bit, just because I love this series and love these boys. Also really fun in this series is that each of the links of course have to have their own different nickname, because otherwise it'd be hey Link, hey Link, hey Link, and it would be a mess. So the combined links each have their own nicknames as well. So starting from the top, we have Time, which is Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask combined together. There's Twilight, who is simply Twilight Princess Link. Warriors, who is Hyrule Warriors. Four, which combines Four Swords Adventures, and the Minish Cap. Wind, which is Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. Wild, which is Breath of the Wild and possibly Tears of the Kingdom. They actually haven't confirmed whether or not, because the series started before Tears of the Kingdom came out. And there's Legend, who is the biggest combination, as he is A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds, the Oracle games, which is 2 games, and Link's Awakening, so he's got a lot of games under his belt. Hyrule, which is the Legend of Zelda 1 and 2, the OG, and finally Sky from Skyward Sword and the first hero chronologically. Now Sky is the one that we're gonna focus on a little bit here, because with every Link comes a Zelda, and of course they also have cute little nicknames because they can't all be Zelda. Now, unfortunately, none of the Zeldas have actually been seen with any speaking roles in the comic yet. The only one we've actually seen is actually extremely recently, like came out after I finished the cosplay recently. We see a little bit of one of their shoulders. It was very exciting for me when I saw this, but that one Zelda that we did see was Sun, or Skyward Sword Zelda. Now, because part of the series isn't just the comics, there's also the rough sketches, there used to be Ask blogs, and all of these things. There are a lot of sketches of concept and characters out there. So not only do each of the links have multiple sketches each, one of the only sketches we actually have of a full Zelda design is Sun, which is Skyward Sword Zelda. It is still a rougher sketch. Some of the details are sketchy and more organic looking, but that made it kind of fun for me to take this beautiful design and run with it. She has been made completely unique to as Sun as compared to Zelda from Skyward Sword, and I absolutely love it. But we're gonna talk a little bit more about her design and some of the elements that I really like a little bit later. Let's actually get back to the crafting for a little bit, because that's what many of you are here for anyway. Okay, so I got the eyelets in, and then I also have gone ahead and started cutting into some of the lace a little bit because I couldn't help myself, but I started playing around with pinning it into place. And I am really happy with how this is looking. It is so colorful, and it's a lot, I will give you that, but I think once it's all together it's gonna look so cute. This is working out really well. I am loving the sunflowers because I mean the Zelda gets the nickname Sun, so it's kind of perfect. I am loving how this is looking. I like this interpretation of the art that I'm kind of going with. I think it really suits this character of Zelda. My eyelets are all in. They are all now covered. They're nice and strong. The shoelace is in because this is just a shoelace that I found. It was from my grandmother's stash, so I'm really happy I still get to use things from her, and it's almost the same exact color of blue to the applique lace, which is fantastic. It makes it really tie in very well. So now that I have things pinned on, I might move a few things around, but it's now time to start sewing things down. I am doing this before I put the sleeves on just because I'll have easier access around the shoulders when it's open like this. And also the sleeves need to be looked after all on their own. So after I get all this done, I will deal with the sleeves. But for now, I need to go ahead and stitch these all down. So this is gonna be a very long process, but I think a really enjoyable one. I have lace pieces already cut out. I've been using my smaller scissors to do it, and I'm going to be doing simple slip stitches around each piece. I don't know how many. I'll figure that out as I go. They don't need to be tacked down very heavily because they're not a strength seam or anything, but enough that they don't move around. So I will be stitching around each and every piece with the coordinating thread that goes with it. Slip stitching mostly because I want it to be mostly invisible stitches. I want them to be very strong. So I will be slip stitching around each and every piece here. It's going to be a long process, but I'm honestly kind of looking forward to just afternoons of hand sewing and such. I love me some hand sewing, as we all know, and I think it's going to be enjoyable, and this is one of the big details of this costume. So I'm looking forward to just spending some time playing around with the design a little bit. We'll see how long this takes. I honestly have no predictions. Last time I did this technique, I did it on Modica, and those pieces are much smaller, but there was also a lot of them. So we'll see if this takes longer or a shorter amount of time. Okay, so it's now a few days later. I have the bodice all done. It's all hand sewn on. I have it tied up also, just take a look at it. And right now I also have the sleeve, like it's not sewn down at all. It is just completely pinned right now, but I just want to take a look how it looks. And I tried out a few appliques on the sleeve to see kind of how I like it. And honestly, yeah, I kind of like it. So now I'm just gonna unpin the shape off the bodice right now. So I just have this and move them around. And then I'm going to be back to more hand sewing. I gotta do it twice because there's 2 sleeves. But hey, it's starting to really look good. I'm really happy with how it's looking. And we're getting to the sleeves now. Okay, so we're now a few days later, and I've gotten all of the appliques sewn onto the sleeve pieces now. And they honestly went on really well. I really like how the insides look. And basically, I just started work up again, so I'm working regularly, so I'm not working on this full time at the moment, but I did spend the first few evenings of my work season plugging away at these, and they turned out pretty good. And now I'm going to turn these into actual sleeves. So it's pretty simple construction wise. I'm going to do the underarm seam first, and that's just gonna be a flat seam. I don't need to do any French seams or anything because I have the edges overlocked. And then I'm going to gather the bottom, and I'm gonna put the cuffs on. The cuffs are in 2 pieces, and before I attach this all to the actual dress, I am gonna sew on some more appliques because there's a little bit of blue with a tiny bit of yellow on the cuff of this. And I'm also gonna attach a little Dorset button on there too because I have some extra Dorset buttons. If you've seen my Dorset button video, you'll know that I had 2 little practice ones in bright pink, so I'm going to add those to this as well. Once the sleeve is completely complete, then I'm going to actually gather the top of it and attach it to the dress. And then that part of the dress will be complete. So pretty straightforward steps going forward. Still a little bit more hand sewing to do, and then I get to the big chunk a bit later. But we're getting there, and I'm looking forward to getting some more progress done on this today. So I now have these sleeves all nicely attached to the dress. I'm really happy with how it's looking, and I have all the little details on. I have my little Dorset button sewn on. it is starting to really take shape and I'm really happy with it. So now that that's done, I'm actually gonna have to keep continuing to cut out more of the lace yardage. I don't think I showed it yet, but here's what the lace yardage looks like on its own. And now I'm gonna have to just cut out a ton more because I used up a lot already so far on the sleeve of the bodice. And now I especially need to go after the really big pieces because that's gonna make up most of the skirt with blue filler in between and maybe a few of the little tiny yellow pieces. But essentially I'm repeating the same process that I've been doing to the top half of this costume onto the skirt now, just hopefully bigger flowers so that it'll be a little faster to do, to be completely honest. I'm gonna go through and start cutting out a lot of this yardage, organizing my flowers, and then I'm gonna decide the pattern of which I wanna put it onto the skirt. And then I'll probably spend the next few evenings plucking away at hand sewing all the lace on, because it's definitely gonna take a while because it's not a huge skirt, but it's a big enough skirt that I've got a lot of mileage to go to sew this all on. So I anticipate this will take me a few evenings to do. We'll see how far we get, and I'll let you know how long that eventually takes, because like I said, I have a feeling it's gonna take a long time, but it'll be pretty enjoyable. I've been watching Apothecary Diaries, and I finished watching Free Rin while working on this. I've been watching some really good anime while making this, so I am going to just take some time and enjoy as I work on this. It's been a very enjoyable project so far. Now, what I love most about this whole series is the story and the characters and such, but the thing I want to talk about the most here is the design, the character designs of everyone involved. As I mentioned before, all their designs combine elements from within their various games, and I think it's done expertly because you can tell which games they're from just by looking at them, and again, they still look like Link while having their own distinctive features. Surprisingly, my favorite design of all the boys is actually 4. He is not a lot of people's favorite because style-wise they find he looks the most like away from Link due to his hairstyle and the style of tunic and shoes and such, but it's those things that make me love this design. Now, firstly, his tunic is split into 4 sections of his 4 different colors from when he splits into the 4 Links, like we see in 4 Swords and 4 Swords Adventures. This actually resembles a style from medieval times, so you see this on heraldic, did I say that right? Heraldic things and such like that. Family colors would be done like this, so I think that's brilliant from bringing in some historical reference into this fantasy series, and it's just really smart. There are embroideries on each corner, and whenever 4 splits into the 4, we do see this in comics, so spoiler alert for that moment, but 4 embroideries on the corner, and when he splits, whichever color was up here, when that one splits off, he has the embroidery only in that corner, because that was his original corner on the original Together Link. 4 is also the only one to keep any semblance of a green hat, but instead it's been turned into a hood, again, kind of resembling some of the clothing you see in medieval hoods. The reason that he gets to keep any semblance of a hood is because he's also part of the Minish Cap, and obviously Eslo and the Minish Cap of the title are kind of important, so it's meant to be a nod to Eslo and like the sentimentality from when he had Eslo traveling with him. And finally, his hair, which some people really didn't like originally, is actually a reference to the original hero you see in the opening sequence of Minish Cap. He looks just like him, and I think that's really smart to make him, again, look distinct. Otherwise, he might start looking a lot like Wind, who is basically based on the same character design of the Toon Link designs, and we wouldn't want that. It's very cool that he gets to be distinct in this way. And he's also the shortest of the Links despite not being the youngest because he's Minish Cap Link. Now, I could go on full essay mode and talk about all the various designs of the Links and all the really cool things. There are several other YouTubers who have already done the same, but then we'll never get through this video and this design that I'm working on, which again, we're gonna talk a little bit more about Sun later. But let's get back to crafting for a little bit and we'll talk about Sun's design in a little bit. Okay, so after several evenings worth of work and everything, the entire dress is now appliqued. I'm so happy with it. So all of that handwork, all of that hand sewing is all finished. And I did not calculate the time it took me completely, like hour by hour, but approximately 45 to 50 hours of just the hand sewing for this dress. But the dress element of this cosplay is now complete. So I am very excited about it. I am really happy with how it looks. And now I just have to make some of the other pieces. So the next piece that I'm moving into is the little petticoat or underskirt. And honestly, this is gonna be a really, really simple garment. It is going to be a rectangular cut skirt. I'm not even gonna like finish the edges of the seams because I'm gonna go selvage edge to selvage edge of the fabric. I'm just using a very simple poly cotton because the skirt really isn't much in this case. It's just to put underneath and peek out every once in a while. So there's no detail on this skirt, simple rectangle cut. Because the selvage edge is a finished edge, it'll be nice and clean and I don't have to worry about putting French seams or serging or anything like that. I'm gonna hem the edge of it, the very bottom of it, and then I'm going to leave a small little opening to create a fake placket of sorts and put a waistband on. I don't think it will take me very long to make this little underskirt, but yeah, that's what I'm gonna move on to next, so I can call the complete dress, underskirt and all, finished. All right, so the underskirt is now finished. It's a very simple underskirt. It took me literally one evening to sew it together, but it does the trick, and I actually really like the contrast of the white against the dark colors. It is a little bit longer than the skirt itself, which is intentional, and it makes the appliques actually really pop, and now I have where it's not just open in the front. I have an undergarment. I will decide later if I want to put another petticoat or anything underneath it, but I don't think I'm going to need to, as it kind of is doing the job really well. I don't want too many layers also because I want this to be a really comfortable summery costume to wear. Now, on to the next piece. The next piece I'm working on is the little corset belt around the middle. So I originally was just gonna make it into a little belt, but I think it's actually better to make it into a corset belt specifically. So I already drafted the patterns up for this one when I drafted the patterns for the main outfit as well. I've done a few fittings with it and I now have a corset belt pattern that I'm really happy with. So now I just need to cut that out. The fabric I'm going to be using is a fake suede fabric, very similar to what I use on the boots for my Sakiso cosplay. It's very, very stiff, so I don't think I'm going to need to put any interfacing or anything on it. I'll make that judgment call whenever I cut the pieces out. I think the two layers that make it the self and the lining will be enough to actually stiffness, especially once I actually have the bones in there. But basically I'm going to sew this together, likely sandwiching pieces together in order to make very strong seams and very strong boning channels. Basically now I am working on the corset belt. I will check back in once I have a little bit more done on that. I've made more decisions. That's what I'm going to be working on next, because it's the next big piece of this costume. All right, so not bad for 8 evenings of work, but I now have the corset belt pieces all pieced together. And now I need to just put in some boning channels, and then I can start putting the boning and then the bias on top. So basically I have to top stitch on the boning channels onto each little piece, starting with the front and moving my way to the inside. And then I'm going to cut down some boning. I'm going to use some spiral steel boning that I have left over from other projects, cap the ends of them so that they don't cut into the fabric at all. Once that is done, I can slip them all into each of their designated channels, and from there I can start to close off the boning channels, and then I can put the bias tape on. The bias tape will be at the top and the bottom. I'll be putting it on with machine first and then wrapping it over the edge and then hand stitching it all down. We'll see how fast I can get through these steps. Boning can take a little while to cut through sometimes, depending on how my tools are behaving, but we'll see how quickly I can get through these. But so far, I'm making really good progress. This is 1 evening's worth of progress in my hands right now with this belt. So we shall see how long the next segment of this takes to do. Okay, so I now have the finished piece. It's all hand stitched on the inside and all it looks like a corset belt now. Like, it's actually a structural strong garment now. It's a boned garment, nice and strong at the top. It's looking actually really good. I'm really happy with it. So next I need to apply some grommets. So I have, very faint to see and hard to see here, but I have marked out some dots where I will be putting the little grommets on. Now these are pretty big ones. I want to be a little more stylized. So like my usual struggles, I still don't have a punch machine of any kind. So I'm gonna be on the struggle bus as I go to punch holes through these layers, switch them down using my press tool, And then I'm going to hand cover them all again, just so they match a little better with everything else going on this costume. So after quite a bit of hand sewing on eyelet holes later, I now have my super cute little finished corset belt. I say finished, but I still do have a few little things left to do. So the piece itself, the garment itself is all done, and honestly, I'm really happy with how it looks. It's so cute. It turned out pretty clean. I really can't complain. But I do have a little bit of detailing to put on here. So one thing is that I have been tying it with just a little piece of white twill tape. It needs proper ties, so I'm actually going to make some, likely out of the same stuff, just so it matches. And a little bit about this length here, maybe a bit shorter, because this was not necessary to be this long. And I'm essentially going to cut a very long rectangle, like a little tube, and then I'm going to sew down that tube, pull it all inside out, flatten the tube, and point off the edges a little bit, and that will end up being the ties for this, as long as the fabric cooperates, because some fabric does not like going inside out, so I'm hoping this stuff cooperates for that. If it doesn't, I will figure something else out for the ties, but it'd be nice to have them be the same fabric as the belt like it is in the artwork. The other thing I need to make for this belt, for this corset belt detail, is she's got like a little piece that ties around the edge. I think it's supposed to be like, I don't know what kind of interpretation it's supposed to be. It's just like kind of like a little tail, little flag. I don't know. And again, that's just a little rectangle. And I will eventually make a piece that goes on top, that pins on top of it. So that's going to be a rectangle of fabric, and I have some really fun gold trim that is actually the same trim that I used on my Skyward Sword Zelda cosplay when I made the one that I made back in, like, what was it, 2015? So I have some of that trim left, so that's what I'm going to put at the very bottom of this little piece, so it kind of is cohesive with my old costume and just a fun little nod to that. Yeah, and then I'm going to figure out how exactly I want to lay it onto this corset belt, and then I can move on to the other little details, because now I'm getting into like the nitty-gritty little things here. I'm gonna go ahead, figure out how wide I need some rectangles to be, and then I'm going to start sewing some rectangles and sewing some details onto rectangles as well. So I'm gonna go do that, and hopefully that should just take me one evening's worth of work. I think it might. I think that'll be fine. So I got the little belt piece attached, and you know, it's looking pretty good. I like it a lot. And I went to make my cording, and I realized I could not pull it inside out no matter what I tried, because of the stiffness of the fabric. So, and because this is so thin when it's all said and done, I'm just gonna do it all by hand. I'm just gonna be doing quick whip stitches. This is not need to be super structurally sound or super clean. I'm gonna go pretty quick, but I will be stitching this entire cord by hand. I don't know if I'll get through this tonight or this will be a tomorrow project. I was not expecting to do this by hand, but here we are. So yeah, we're gonna fold it in and we're gonna do this by hand. I have melted the edges of the fabric because it is polyester based, so that makes that a little easier. But yeah, we're gonna do this by hand. So let's talk about the genius of Sun's actual design in the Linked Universe series. So all the Links and the Zeldas are supposed to be their post-game counterparts, not their in-game or during counterparts. And you can see that in Zelda's design completely. And obviously JoJo, the artist, had to kind of pick what design to go off of. And they went off of her pink design from earlier on in the game to add the base for which one to go off of here. But the way it's designed is awfully clever. So she's still wearing a 3/4 sleeve pink dress, but this one instead is split down the middle and open, so there is a white underskirt, which I find resembles the white dress that she wears earlier in the game. The neckline better resembles that dress as well, besides all the little details, but she still has a 3/4 sleeve dress on. But they've stylized it a little bit to make it their own, and it's instead of poofy sleeve dress, which I actually think just for Zelda's personality, which has remained much the same as far as we know, it works a lot better. It's a lot more fun and airy and such like that compared to the tight-fitting sleeves she wears in-game. The yellow details have been kept as well, but they're more organic looking, more flowery looking, and they've also had some blue mixed in there to add more blue elements to the design. Obviously, I have decided to incorporate these as flowers in my version of the character, but another thing I really love is that they've kept part of her hair loose and some tied just like she is in her white outfit, but it's tied with ribbons again. They are now white to resemble the white later in the design, but she has one of the bracelets left because, this is a spoiler alert if you haven't played Skyward Sword, towards the end of the game she gives Impa her other bracelet. So So she only has one left in that part of her adventure, and that is the clear indicator that this is a post-game version of Zelda. Her belt has also been turned into a little corset belt, which is adorable. She still has some of the little chain elements, and she has a pointed scarf on her side instead of a square one, which also I find balances out a lot better with this particular design because there's less square elements on the dress. Instead of little square arches, it's flowers, and instead of having a cut square sleeve, it's that blousey one. Looking at this design, she looks so familiar, and you can tell who exactly she's supposed to be at a glance, despite there being so many changes and differences. The design is excellent, and the second I saw it, I just fell in love with it. So it's no surprise that when the friend who got me into the series, Go Beyond Cosplay, said that they were going to be they're working on Sky, and I had to ask them who Sky was, and I fell into this whole rabbit hole, that when I saw Sun, I said, would you mind if I make this to go with you? It ended up being a perfect storm because this cosplay was so enjoyable to make. Since making the cosplay, one of the other Zeldas has been teased a little bit, and that's because of the release of Echoes of Wisdom, a few other character designs that have been official and posted to the Linked Universe Discord. I just love it, and I can't wait for them to actually make full appearances because there's some really neat little underlying storylines, like Sky really missing Sun. But yeah, the designs just make it, they're so realistic to the characters, and it makes it so believable that time has passed for them. The belt's all done. So I have the cording in here. I have the little tail attached. Let's turn this a little bit. It looks really good, and I'm really happy with it, and that marks the corset belt as completely finished now. I really like the way it just kind of hangs over the edge the way it does, how it looks like it's like tucked into the corset belt. I really am happy with how it all looks all together. So now it's time to add some extra detail to it, because there's more that kind of, I don't know if it's gonna be attached directly to the corset belt or will act as a separate underskirt piece, but there is a little like hip skirt that this version of Sun or Sky Zelda wears. So I am going to figure out how I want to do that next. I just need to figure out what I want to do about the shape first, because it is in a point, and I gotta figure, if I just made it a straight triangle, it would sit here funny and squish the side. So it will likely be a curved piece, and then I'll figure out if I want to make it into like a separate skirt that attaches to this, or attach it directly to the corset. I'm going to drape, likely using pattern paper just so I don't waste any fabric, because it's gonna be a pretty big piece. I'm going to drape some shapes onto this corset belt and then figure out how exactly the shape will look. I have the prediction that the piece will have a very circular waist that I will start from in order to make it lie kind of flat-ish and kind of gathery along the side. So basically this process is gonna be a lot of trial and error to see what I like and how it goes. And I think it'll be kind of fun. I've actually been really looking forward to this. When I was at work today, I was just thinking about working on this part, and I am really looking forward to it. Okay, so I now have my little mock-up piece. So I've gone ahead and I made a pattern piece using the paper, cut it out of fabric, and this is essentially what it looks like. So it does not sit, like, it doesn't go off of the body, but it does sit off the body a little bit because of the dart. Otherwise, this would just be going flat up against and removing all of the nice fullness that I've created through all these gathers and the little petticoat underneath. So the dart is actually quite nice, and I actually really like the shape I have here now. I've even tried it on my body as well, just by pinning it to myself, and like, it does have enough of a hip curve that it actually behaves with the skirt and doesn't completely squish it. It does reduce a little bit of movement, but I kind of knew that going in because this is meant to be like a piece that's draped on. So this means that I need to move on to the next step. So I have my little pattern piece made over there, the dart marked and everything. And the first step will be to cut it out. I'm trying to think how I want to finish the edges on this. Do I want to make this a lined piece because that will get heavier against this? I don't think I do. I think I'm going to add some hem allowance and just make a very simple, straightforward hem on the bottom. I think that should be doable. But before I do any of that, I need to cut out the piece, the pattern piece, and then sew the dart in. Straightforward, that's the only sewing or machine sewing I need to do on this. Then I have to decide how exactly I want to do the detail. There's a bird shape on this piece. Let's get to hemming and making the hip piece, and then we'll worry about detailing it afterwards. So let's go do that. Okay, my piece is now, it's just kind of stuck to my mannequin right now, but it's all made up now. The hems are done. I ended up doing the top hem by hand because I was actually in a call with Megwin and I didn't want to use the machine, so I just did it by hand just because I didn't want to make any noise. And it's all done up there too, and so is the dart. And as you probably were able to tell in the footage, I switched out what fabric I was using, and I didn't film the second time around because it was the same thing, just less muffin content. And I figured you guys would enjoy the muffin content. So I did end up using, instead of the linen, it was slightly a different blue, and I didn't like how it was looking with the blues here. Now this is the same twill that I used on my 60s pattern dress, the world traveling pattern. So this is that same fabric that I had left over, and it is a perfect match to all the other blues that I've been using. So it felt right to use that instead. I will definitely find other things to use that linen for. I'm not worried about that at all. Now, the next thing to worry about is the detail that goes on here. And the thing is, in the artwork, there is no like image of what it looks like. And it doesn't look like it's the exact same thing as on the back of the sailcloth that Sky wears in, or Sky Link wears in Linked Universe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine elements of both of the sailcloth and what the sailcloth looks like in the game, Skyward Sword, together a little bit, but also I'm going to do a little bit of original stuff. So it will still look relatively similar, but it will be its own thing. And what part of the process here is that I have finally decided how I want to do the design on here, how I want to put it on. And I want to use a hand quilting technique so that it sits kind of up. It's not squished down and really flat against this. And I want some hand stitching to do after work, when I come home from work every day. To do this hand applique technique, I need to add seam allowance to each little applique piece and turn it all under, meaning certain shapes are more doable and cleaner to do than others. So I'm going to redesign the bird emblem similar to what it looks like in game, similar to what it looks like in Link's universe, and then what is actually doable with this particular pressing under technique. And I'm going to design half of the bird shape right onto the pattern so that I know what it looks like and I know how it will fit onto this final piece. And then I'm going to flip it over to copy it to make sure it's symmetrical, because it is a symmetrical design no matter what. And then I'm going to worry about cutting out, adding seam allowance, and doing all the applique. But we'll get to that when I finish it out and finish it up and start to like work on the actual appliques, and then I'll tell you more about what I'm doing with that. Okay, so it's been a little bit since I've checked in, and between then and now, I have completely done all the hand sewing for the applique that goes on my little hip skirt thing. What I ended up doing was a hand applique stitch, where you see the stitch kind of going in a little perpendicular line. You add a little bit of seam allowance, and then you press all of those edges under, and then you have a nice finished edge to work with. You then apply it to the piece, pin it in place, and start to hand stitch all around the piece. Putting a little extra care in the corners by adding extra stitches in a bit of a fan pattern to keep those corners nice and crisp, because the corners are more likely to get frayed because of the nature of folding under edges. And then you go along and continue in that way. So that is what I did to do this. It took me actually not as long as I thought it was going to. I thought this would take me 3 whole days, and it took me like an evening after work, plus a little bit yesterday and a little bit today, and I have it done. As you can see, I do need to wash off some of the ink that comes on. So this is water, so you can wash it off with water, thank goodness. One more detail that needs to be added to this to make it complete, and that is that there's a stripe that goes all the way around the edge. And I decided to kind of go with like all the lace applique that I've done in here. I'm just gonna use a base lace trim to do it. So I'm gonna take the lace trim and place it on. I'm gonna pin it on carefully, and then miter the edge a little bit, fold around a little bit, and then just top stitch it on. And that should be nice and straightforward and simple. And then this little piece will be done, and I'll be ready to attach it in whatever way I want to the corset belt, which I think I'm going to do with snaps so that it's removable. All right, so I lost a lot of footage just now of me working on things, so I'm going to reiterate the last time I checked in the vlog before I accidentally deleted a ton of progress. So I'm going to explain what I've done and where I'm going from here. This is now attached to the corset belt. It has snaps that attach to the inside, and I'm actually really happy with it. It's really pretty, and it just adds a really nice touch of color to this as well. And I've also made another attachment for the corset belt, that being this little belty thing. I bought several different sizes of gold hoops and a little chain of hoops and links. So I took things apart, the links apart, and started putting everything together in this type of pattern that you see here. Pretty simple to put together, but also really fun and satisfying. I didn't want anything too big, and I feel like these did a really good job of just a subtle detail, because if there was too much, then the costume would start to get a little too busy, because there's still stuff to add to this. That is that part of the costume done. Everything that gets attached to the corset belt almost is finished, or at least things that are sewing and stuff like that. The next thing to work on is the belt buckle, which is going to sit right here, and the bracer-esque bracelet that's going to go on this. Now, that's a lot of the footage that I lost, was making the links for this, but also making these pieces right here. I lost all the footage of me making the patterns for these. I lost all the footage of me cutting it out, sanding it all, and then eventually putting it all and priming it all, because this is 2 pieces that are cut out, sanded, primed. So that is these pieces, and I've lost all of it. And that was a lot of footage, because yeah, it took me 2 tries. Here is an unsanded and just badly cut, bad rough copy of it. Here's the good one. I am so mad at myself for getting rid of all that footage, but now I can at least tell you how I plan to move forward with this. So now I have this beautiful piece. I don't need to lock it on or anything. There's no closure needed because it doesn't even move. It is on there really well. This is not a finished piece. This is just primed and like smoothed out. I now need to paint both of these pieces. I'm going to start with the bracelet, because the bracelet is the more interesting one of the 2, I think. I found some pearlescent paints of sorts in acrylic paint. Let me go grab it real quick. These are some metallic paints in a very nice blue and purple sheen color here. And I also got some white so I can play around with some highlights and lowlights. I am going to use these for painting. I'm going to start with a base coat of this here to see how it goes, and then I'll play around with shading and stuff as I go. I do not know how many layers of this it will need to actually be fully opaque and you want to not see the primer. Now, I will say that one of the tricks I'm doing here is I used the black primer, because it said that if you use black primers underneath something that's supposed to be metallic of sorts, it ends up looking more metallic. I find that is actually the case, but it does take more layers to paint it. If you paint it with a white primer, it tends to look a little more cartoony-esque, so depending on your desired look. So I'm going to see how many layers of paint it takes for this, and a very similar thing for the belt buckle. I'm really sad I lost some of the belt buckle footage too, because I used foam clay and made like little tiny foam balls, squished them out, sanded them to make this little even flower here. It's so cute, and I lost all the footage of me making it. I'm so mad. When I get to the belt buckle, I plan to paint it a silvery color, or maybe a coppery color. I think a silvery color, and then I'll probably dry brush on some coppery colors to kind of get some of those details a little bit more raised and popping out more. So this will be a very metallic little piece when it's finished, and hopefully a metallic-ish look for the bracelet when it's done too. We'll see what the paints do, and we'll see if I need to put any gloss coats or anything like that over it as well. I do like painting, so this should be pretty nice. I'm gonna pop on some stuff on YouTube, relax a little bit. I did just get back from Anime North yesterday, so this will be just a nice little relaxing foray into continuing to work on this cosplay, because it needs to be done for YetiCon. So with that, my sun cosplay was all complete and ready to go for YetiCon 2024. I am so incredibly happy with this cosplay. I enjoyed making it so much, and I am so sorry it took so long for it to get out. Work has just been so busy, and I prioritized getting convention videos out first. But with that, there is a little bit of a spoiler, obviously, in my earlier videos, and that is what also happened with this cosplay. So I was proud of it already, and throughout the making process, I was informing Go Beyond Cosplay of where my progress was, was, where I was at, and in those messages I would let them know how much I am loving this cosplay, how self-indulgent all these techniques were for me, how I loved the design, and how I just felt so good about it. And the whole time they were in communication with my now fiance, Sam. They said to him, listen, we're gonna be doing a shoot on the top of the mountain at Blue Mountain. This might be your, this would be a perfect shot, because Sam wanted to propose at YetiCon, and he did. So thank you, CJ, for cosplaying this with me. We will hopefully be wearing these cosplays again because they're also very comfortable. For creating this beautiful memory with a cosplay that I really, really enjoyed from a series that I also now very much enjoy. As you know, it's Zelda related, but it's not exactly the Zelda series. What I find very funny is the past Annie you've been seeing making this cosplay and working away on it just had no idea that this was going to happen, or the intention was going to be that this was the cosplay that my fiance was going to propose to me in. And great choice, dear. A really great choice. This cosplay may honestly be a new favorite of mine due to, again, the comfort, the wearability, and just how much I enjoyed making it, and all the applique in the front just looks so pretty, even though it's super colorful and it looks like a flower explosion threw up on it. I love it. Definitely be seeing more of sun in the future, probably a little bit of sky as well, and hopefully some more linked universe. I actually might be really down to cosplay other characters, including some of the links, possibly even 4, because again, that design is so chef's kiss, and I love all the historical references, but all of these characters are so cosplayable and I love them. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm so sorry it came out so late once again. Very special project to me, and this cosplay has turned out really great. I hope this has made you interested in checking out Linked Universe. I'll put some links in the description down below if you want to check it out, and be sure to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I'll see you in my next video, which will hopefully be another work in progress video. So I'll see you then, and for now, goodbye.